Mitch Marner trade rumors are intensifying, and this trade proposal is going to shock you. Plus, the Leafs' first round draft selection receives high praise from GM Brad Treliving, and I'm going to break all this stuff down for you coming up on this episode of Hattrick HQ. But before we get into it, we got to say we're on the road for 5,000 subscribers here on the channel before the end of the summer. So if you're not subscribed already and you don't want to miss out on any Leafs and NHL content, make sure to go down below and hit that subscribe button. But with that said, let's just jump right into the first topic of the video today, which is Ben Danford gets high praise. And yes, Ben Danford is a guy we talked about here on the channel when the Leafs did select him, saying how he is a great right shot defense to have in your prospect pool. But today, we actually heard from Brad Treliving, the GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs, on what his thoughts about Ben Danford were at the draft. And this is what he had to say here. He said, we thought we could slide down, hopefully the availability to get him later as we did. But, you know, lots of intangibles, high character kid, moves really well. He's just sort of scratching the surface for what he could be. He has high hockey intelligence, real competitive kid, right shot defenseman. They are hard to find. He also said, he's a guy that our staff was really focused in on. That's why we traded down, said Treliving. And obviously, one thing we know about Brad Treliving is he loves those right shot defense, the defensive-minded type of right shot defense guys. And it seems like this is why they decided to draft this kid, because in a couple of years' time, this guy could be battling for to make this defensive pairings for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And obviously this is a kid that Brad Treliving really thinks high of, obviously saying, you know, they traded down to get him. He has high intelligence. He's a hard defenseman to find. So this is a big praise for Ben Danford coming from Brad Treliving here, saying, you know, this is our guy. We want him. We got him. We traded down to get him. And that was the perfect quote from Brad Treliving there. But we did get a breakdown here from the Hockey News on Ben Danford, just in case you missed it. He said, standing at 6'1" from Ontario, he's displaying high hockey IQ, steadiness, physicality, mobility. He's great skating abilities and elite shot blocking. They say in 64 regular season games, he had 33 points and finding his offensive potential in the latter half of the season, scoring 10 points in 21 playoff games. His 200-foot game has continued to progress, tallying 12 more points compared to the 22-23 season, though it remains an area for further development while maintaining a defensive first mindset. And obviously, this is what you want to hear out of a kid of Ben Danford. It seemed like this season he kind of leaned a little bit more two-way, leaning more defensively than just pure defense. When you have a defensive-minded defenseman, a defensive defenseman that can also put up points for you, they are very hard to find. I mean, having high hockey IQ, high shot blocking awareness is tough to find, obviously, in the NHL, especially at the right-hand shot position. So it's great that the Leafs drafted this guy so he can get some reps in here now, wherever he is in the juniors, if he comes over to the Marlies, wherever it is, he can get some reps in, continue working on that offensive side of his game, but still maintaining that shot blocking, big defensive, prowess that Ben Danford has. And I think this guy is going to be a phenomenal talent. Obviously, first-round draft selection. His potential his ceiling is very high right now, but I think in a couple years' time, we will be seeing this guy compete for to make this Toronto Maple Leafs team. It just seems like, from what we heard from Brad, from what we're hearing from the Hockey News on the breakdown of this guy, if you give him a couple more years to develop into a great two-way right-hand shot defenseman, I think this guy will just propel into the stratosphere and be a tremendous defenseman here. So it's great to hear that Ben Danford is progressing well, and hopefully we get to see him in the preseason. I think that would be really cool to see. We probably won't, but I would love to see him in the preseason. It'd be really fun to see. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts on Ben Danford down below. What do you think? Did the Leafs need a right-hand shot defense down the pipeline? Let me know what you think down below in the comment section. We're going to get into the second topic of the video, which is these trade rumors are getting ridiculous. And yes, yet again, we have another Mitch Marner trade proposal that, some fans, I think a lot of you guys down in the comment section are not going to agree with. And here we go. We're going to jump right into it here. And they say here, the Rangers are still looking for a top-line right wing to support Kreider and Zibanejad. The Maple Leafs lack depth in their defensive core while having a surplus of forwards. They say here, coincidentally, each team could be interested in moving a player that fits the other's needs. Right winger Mitch Marner of the Maple Leafs and right shot defenseman Jacob Trouba of the Rangers. So they're basically putting a proposal out here for Mitch Marner swap with Jacob Trouba. Maybe there'll be a few picks in there on the Rangers side. I feel like that would have to happen if this trade ever went through. But that's what they're proposing here. A Mitch Marner for Jacob Trouba trade. And yes, I don't know how to feel about this one. This is definitely an interesting one for me. I don't know. I think Mitch Marner, obviously he's that guy who controls the play. He's the guy who makes the players around him better. Not saying Jacob Trouba isn't that himself. I think he's a tremendous right shot defenseman. Obviously he's great on the defensive side of the puck, but Mitch Marner's like a 90 to 100 point scorer, and you're giving him away just to improve your defensive core, which, doesn't really make sense in my opinion. But they also go on to say here in this article that for this trade to happen, Mitch Marner would have to waive his full no-move clause baked into his contract, and meanwhile Trouba has a 15 no-trade list for the 2024 season. We need to leave Toronto outside of it, and he need to leave Toronto on the outside of it. So if Toronto is on that no-trade list, there's no way that this happens. But if it isn't, and Marner waives his no-trade clause, it could happen. It really could happen. It is potentially something that could happen. We've talked about a lot here on the channel. Are they going to trade him? Are they going to keep him? My thoughts are they're going to keep him, but there are more and more rumors, more and more proposals coming out every single day, and it's leading a lot of people to believe that Marner may not be a Leaf at the beginning of the season. But I think in this situation, there has to be a lot of dominoes to fall into place for this trade to take place, which would be, Marner waiving his no-move clause and Toronto being off Trouba's no-move list. There's a lot of things that need to happen here for this to even come into fruition. So that, it's a tough trade to pull off, but it is definitely something, if Brad Treliving is seeing fit, that he needs to improve this defense even more that he's already had, then this could be an option that they go out and see. And I don't know how to feel about this, because it's comparing two different players. Because with Trouba, obviously you're getting a vet, you're getting a guy who's going to be a warrior for your team. He's going to go to battle, he's going to block the shots, he's going to lay the hits, he's going to do all the nitty-gritty stuff on the blue line. But on the other hand, you have Mitch Marner, who is a very skilled forward, a great playmaker, a great defensive forward as well. And what would you rather have is the real question. What would you rather? Would you rather have, a very, very solid defensive core? Now, if they get Trouba, that defensive core would be amazing. Or would you rather lack a little bit more on the offense? Not saying that they would lack a lot, because they have Austin Matthews, William Nylander, John Tavares. But if they do make this trade, then yeah, that does take away from their offense a lot, in my opinion. So it is a very interesting trade. I want to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section. What would you rather have, a big right shot defense, or would you rather have the skillful Mitch Marner? But they did also go on to say here that the Leafs would end up with $3.8 million in cap space if this trade goes through, and the Rangers would absorb the difference in players' salaries. New York has $5.1 million in cap space before completing the trade, more than enough to land Marner's cap difference. So yeah, it makes sense. This could happen in a cap. In the cap way, the cap works out here, but like I said, the whole no moved list, the whole full no trade clause comes into effect here as well. But the cap situation doesn't matter here, because both teams will be compliant to bring each player in, whichever team they are, and that makes sense from a trade aspect. But they also went on to say here that that Staple and Peter Barrow listed the Maple Leafs as one of the top trade fits for Trouba, saying he's a big shot right defense like Trouba always entices teams. The Maple Leafs are going to be tight against the salary cap, but perhaps they'd be interested in this trade to free up some cap, and they say they have a need on the right side. And yes, they do have a need on the right side, but if you want my honest opinion on this trade, it doesn't really make sense, because they just brought in Chris Tanev. Chris Tanev is going to be that number one top guy on the right side, so why would you bring in another right shot defenseman to move Tanev down the lineup, and then ultimately move OEL down to the third pairing, which then leaves Timothy Liljegren without a place in the lineup? So it doesn't really make sense for me, in my opinion, for this trade to go through. There's a lot of stuff that has to fall into place for this to happen. But my honest opinion is I think that the Leafs should keep Marner. I've been saying this. They should run it back with this core 4, core 5, whatever you want to say, under a new coach. And if it doesn't work under the new coach of Craig Berube, then you have to start looking at other options. Then you got to start moving out guys and stuff like this. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this trade down below in the comment section. I already know a lot of you guys are going to hate this one, but I want to read your thoughts on this down below. Would you rather have that right-hand shot in Trouba, or would you rather keep the skillful Mitch Marner? I'd love to read your guys' thoughts on that, but we're going to get into the next topic of the video, which is comment of the day. And the comment of the day today goes to John. John said, if the Leafs trade Marner, then they get a first-team All-Star in return. He said, someone that can make other players around them better. That's what Marner does, and that's what the Leafs lose without him. And John, you're preaching to the choir here, buddy, because I completely agree with this. I think if you lose Marner, you're not losing just a skillful player, but you're losing a guy who makes everybody around him better. And if you're not going to get a guy back, a first-team All-Star in return, then it doesn't really make sense. You run it back. If you lose him at the end of the season, so what? Maybe this is the year. Maybe this is the year they make a run, and they need a guy like Mitch Marner to get them through that run, and they trade him off, and they don't have an offensive player All-Star in their back pocket in return for Mitch Marner to help pick up the slack when the team needs a goal, when the team needs to make a scoring chance. And it just doesn't make sense for me for them to trade Mitch Marner. I've been saying it now for weeks and weeks, but we keep seeing these trades, and I keep having to put them out to you guys because, you know, who knows? We could see a big Mitch Marner trade tomorrow, and it would just wipe everybody off their feet. So it would definitely swipe me off my feet, definitely. But appreciate the comment, John. I really love you showing your support here on the channel and sharing a great opinion about the Marner trade situation. And if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure down below, hit that like button. It helps push these videos out to all the NHL fans on YouTube. Also, comment on the video. You might be featured on the next comment of the day, just like our buddy John. And subscribe to the channel. Like I said, we're on the road for 5,000 subscribers, and really appreciate it if you're not subscribed already to go down below and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to check out a video I did yesterday, it'll be popping up on your screen right now. But as always, I've been your host, KC. Keep your stick on the ice.